Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to be making my own clock and using Altenew packaging to do it. So you'll see here, I've got both sides of Altenew's Instant Dimension foam tape, both sides of that packaging. You'll likely see both of them throughout the video, but the one you see here is the one I'm going to be using. So what I'm doing now is I want to cut some foam core so I can glue it to the back of that packaging just to give it a little bit more stability. So I want to cut a piece of foam core that's just slightly smaller than the packaging. And I kind of just, I took a quick measurement of the packaging and then used my little tool to create a perfect circle to start my cut on the foam core. So here you see I'm just using a box cutter and doing a terrible job, horrible technique. I actually learned today that I've been cutting foam core all wrong for a really long time. So I'm going to try and start doing it the right way. So what I'm doing here now is I want to find the center of this foam core. And there is a way to do that where you get the exact center. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to draw two lines on your circle. And what I'm doing is I'm making sure that my lines are going to be 24 centimeters because you need to mark at the exact center of that line. You want to make sure that the lines aren't totally parallel. I actually should have angled this line a little bit more. Once I draw the other lines, you'll see why. So again, 24 centimeters, and I will mark it at the 12 centimeter spot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my T ruler. So if you have a T ruler or you have a right angle ruler, either one will work. Now I'm going to line up the T on the line that I just drew, and then I'm going to line up my ruler at the 12 centimeter mark and draw a line. I'm going to do the same thing on the other line I just drew. Line up my T, line up my ruler at the halfway mark, and draw a line. As soon as my head gets out of the way. So sorry guys. Eventually it will get out of the way. I just want to make sure that it's all lined up. Okay, so here we go. Now where these two lines intersect is my center. Now you'll also see that I did this on the back side already, and I'm really excited that it was the same. So it worked out. So now what I'm doing is I'm making my markings for the numbers on my clock face, because you need to figure out where you're going to put all of your numbers. Now, of course, 12, 3, 9, and 6 are pretty easy, but what about the other ones? So here's a protractor. I had to purchase this protractor. You want to line up the center of the protractor with your center dot or hole that you've got on your clock face. You're going to mark your 0 degrees, your 180, and then you're going to mark at 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. Okay, and you'll see there on the right, I've kind of got 360 divided by 12 equals 30. Some pretty simple math there, and that's where you mark. So you're going to do that on one half of your circle. Once you've marked those spots, turn your circle around, line up the hole you can see on the protractor there at the center with your center hole on the clock face, and then again mark every 30 degrees. And of course my 0 and 180 are already marked. And then once all that's done, I'm going to connect those lines that are across from each other and draw a line across that clock face. And when I say clock face, I'm not using this. This is just the back piece. I've never done this before, so you're really kind of seeing me do all this for the first time. So I didn't want to draw, of course, on the actual clock face, on the packaging that I'm using for my clock face. So I'm using the back piece that's going on that packaging to draw it. So you can see I've got perfect marks here. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So looks really good. Now I thought, and I think this is probably a really good idea to do, is I wanted to get a sense of how my numbers are going to look on my clock face. So I die cut them all out in just a basic white, and when I put them on this foam core, I realized it was too much, it was too crowded. So I pulled off the numbers, and I've got this little die that does these little ticks, and I'm like, well, this will be perfect. But as you will see, the final product is not going to have these ticks. Okay, so anyways, guys, I'm gonna throw on some music. I'm gonna do a little bit of decorating, a little bit of work, and then I will catch you on the other side, and we will talk about the clock mechanism. Okay, so you can see I'm just making my hole a little bit bigger here on the clock face, because I'm going to start to put this together and add my clock mechanism. But one thing I wanted to do was take a few minutes just to kind of explain how this mechanism works. I just wasn't able to capture it on camera while I was putting this clock together. So I wanted to take some time and review that with you. And you can see here, this is what I purchased. So I've got two sizes here, and that's the hand shaft length that I'm talking about. So here's the one mechanism, and you can see it's got a longer hand shaft. And then you could see the lip on the mechanism here. And then at the top above the threads, you've got the top of the hand shafts. And you can see that they're two different sizes. And that's really important, and we will get to that. So I'm just going to pull out some hardware. I've got a grommet. Then there is a washer as well as a nut. So the first thing that goes on the clock mechanism is that hanging bracket. And you'll notice when you put it over the hand shaft, it sits outside of that lip. So you want that to sit properly when you put your grommet on and then your clock face. You'll notice on the top of the mechanism as well that there's an indent, so it kind of just shows you where that hanging bracket is supposed to sit. Now, the one thing I didn't have for this video was something to put on as a clock face, so I just had this lying around, this die cut, and I just made a clock face. So after the hanging bracket, the grommet goes on, and then your clock face. Now remember, your clock face faces out, doesn't face the mechanism, of course. And then once the clock face is on, you put on your washer and then your nut. And you'll see the threads on the hand shaft, and that nut will just thread down. Now, when you put your nut on, and there are different mechanisms, there are like, I think they're called high torque clock mechanisms, meaning they're supposed to be able to handle larger hour and minute hands. So they're supposed to handle the weight. So when you tighten this nut, you don't want it too tight. You want it snug, but you don't want it too tight. You want to, I do believe you would damage some threads if you made this too tight, because I just don't think these are that durable. So moving on to the clock hands, you'll see here, you see the hour hand and the minute hand. You'll see that there's some holes at the top, and you'll see that they're different sizes. And these are going to go on the top of that hand shaft. And you can see the different sizes of the top of the shaft. So you want to take your hour hand, and that's going to go on first, because that's going to go on to the larger top portion of that hand shaft. And I'm not really sure if I know the technical names here. And then you would grab the minute hand and put that on the shaft above the hand shaft. Now, I ran into a little snag here. That minute hand would not go on. So I just pulled the hour hand off, grabbed some new ones, and I'll quickly put on the hour hand here on the shaft. Again, it's got the larger opening to fit on the larger portion of the top of the shaft. And then here is the minute hand, and that's going to go on the smaller portion of the top of that hand shaft. Okay. Now, you're going to bend, I bent these hands slightly while putting them together, but don't worry about that, they'll go back. So just a quick closer look here, you can see the difference between the sizes, and that is how they're supposed to sit. Now, moving on to the seconds hand, if you want to use one. A lot of these packages, and I got it like this full kit, I got like a piece, I guess you could call it a top piece that goes on top in there, but you can get it with your seconds hand, and it just pushes, you just press it in just like you did the other hands, and you just press it in, and that is your seconds. Again, some of the kits come with just the cap, so no hand at all, which is what I like. And you'll see with my finished clock, I have no seconds hand. I just have the cap that I put on, and that's it. So you can see that they're all kind of apart. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna grab a battery. I'm gonna push that in, and you can see right away, and I've got some bent hands there, which is fine. You can see right away that my second hand is moving. No problem. So it's definitely working. I believe the average mechanism clock is about 2 minutes off per year. So I don't know. That's my estimate. But there should be no issues. You can see I've got no clearance there just because my hands were bent. So just bend them back to where they need to be. Make sure you've got clearance for all of your hands. Set your time. A good way to set your time is usually noon, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or 3 o'clock. That's my recommendation anyways. But that's it. It's super simple. It's not hard. The package I got had no directions. But I've done this enough with my actual clock where I've changed the mechanism that I kind of understand how it works. So we'll move back now to the actual clock that I'm making. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually lining up my centers. I've glued my foam core to that packaging, and now I am installing the clock mechanism. Again, this is the one with the long hand shaft. I am going to change this out. We'll see that shortly. I will put on the shorter one because this one is just too long. Now, I wanted to put on the mechanism before I decorated my clock face, so I just grabbed that little bowl just for something the mechanism can sit in. So now I'm just adding some die cuts, just doing my decoration. Gonna add a little bit more glitter in some of those die cuts, so some inlaid dies. And once that's done, that's when I realized that I'm not going to be using this clock mechanism. I'm going to have to change it out. Okay, so I've decorated it. I've changed out my clock mechanism. Now I'm going to install my hands. Now, I mentioned that I ordered a kit, and I got a lot of clock hands with it, but they were black or red or gold. I'm not even sure if I had any silver. I might have had some silver ones, but I didn't like any of those. And I wanted to stick with the black, but the black would blend in with the back of the clock face. So I just added a strip of that glitter paper that I had, just to make it more eye-catching. So when you glance at the clock, you can see those hands right away. You don't have to you don't have to make an effort to look for them. So you can see I just finished adding my minute hand, and now I've got that cap I was talking about earlier, where it can have that seconds hand on it. So again, this is just a cap. You can get them with your hands and with your kit, and that's what I'm using. So it took me a minute. I remember this being actually a little difficult to press in, but it eventually got there. So I'm just throwing this at 12. I haven't put in my battery yet, so I'm gonna do that. Nice fresh Duracell to make sure that works. But this is my clock face. I think it looks great. It's so glittery, it's so cute, and I really didn't have to do a lot of decorating on it because most of it was done by Altenew already. So here's me struggling to put in the battery. I gotta tell you, I don't know why these things are so snug. Every clock mechanism I've ever used, like changed out on my own clocks, the struggle is real, guys. You cannot press these batteries in. It's so tough. I don't understand why they're so tight. I mean, it's not like you throw the clock around when you use it. It just hangs on a wall. Anyways, so here's me trying to listen for the seconds, because other mechanisms I've had, you can hear the ticking, but I don't hear any on this one. But I can see the mechanism in the back underneath the plastic that it is working. So what I do is I put this down and I leave for a couple of minutes to grab a drink. And when I come back, that minute hand has moved. And we'll get to that. It's coming, I promise. And there it is. Okay, so now I know that it works. That's great, because that is not the actual time. I think it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. So that's it for me, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me for my first do-it-yourself clock. I do suspect there will be another one. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will catch you later.